Hi everybody, I'm here this morning with a Thistle Throwback. Today we're going to talk about one of the resources available in our historical archives at Thistle Cottage. This book, The History of Muhlenberg County, is, for obvious reasons, one of the most popular and most used items in our historical collection at Thistle Cottage, not only by visiting researchers, but also by our own staff. Although author Otto A. Rothert originally published the book more than 100 years ago in 1913, it still remains the definitive guide on early to mid-Muhlenberg County history. Many have said that Rothert's history is a model for future county histories, and some have even called it the best county history ever written. I don't know if it's true that it's the best, since I haven't read all of the county histories in existence, but it is an incredible resource for us and our visitors. Paul Camplin also wrote and published an invaluable new history of Muhlenberg County in 1984, which fills in some of the blanks and information from later years of our county's history, and other authors have also written on more specific topics. All of those books are available in our collection at Thistle Cottage, and many of them, including Rothert's 1913 publication, can be checked out from our normal library branches if you need to do research at home on your own. Rothert's History is a comprehensive look at the history of Muhlenberg County, dating back to the first settlers here in the late 1700s. Topics discussed in the book range from descriptions of those early settlements to profiles of some of Muhlenberg's notable residents through the ages, including Greenville's Ephraim Brank, Central City's Robert Y. Thomas, Civil War General Don Carlos Buell, and even our own William Graham Duncan, coal magnate and builder of Thistle Cottage. In fact, a photo of Thistle Cottage itself is even included in the book. But it's not just the variety and amount of information available in this book that makes it so valuable, although that is certainly a positive point as well. The information would be much less useful, however, if it weren't trustworthy. Fortunately, Mr. Rothert did a lot of research for this publication. Sources are cited throughout the book, and they include passages from other earlier histories as well as interviews with subjects when available. As such, later researchers are able to use this book as a source for their own publications and works. We use it frequently in our own research at the Thistle Cottage Museum and Archives. The book isn't infallible, there are some errors. However, Mr. Rothert, upon being made aware of those, also compiled a list of mistakes and omissions and made that available in 1950 as a supplement to the book. Rothert's history also includes many photos and illustrations, as well as appendices with additional information. Even better, the book is indexed, so it's easy to use to find the topic you're looking for. Mr. Rothert was not new to historical publication when he completed his History of Muhlenberg County, although this was early in his career. He had already published several newspaper articles, including a 1906 Story of the Stack about Buckner's Furnace in the Greenville Record, and several other succeeding articles in the Record as well. In later years, he would also publish several other titles, including the History of Unity Baptist Church in 1914 about Muhlenberg County's Unity Baptist, the Story of a Poet, Madison K. Wine, in 1921, and The Outlaws of Cave In Rock in 1924. He also became the secretary of Louisville's respected Filson Club Historical Society and editor of the club's Historical Quarterly Journal in 1928, a job he held until 1945. Perhaps one of the most fascinating, or at least surprising, facts about Mr. Rothert, at least to me, is that he was not a Muhlenberg County resident when he took up the job of writing the county's history. Mr. Rothert was born in 1871 in Huntingburg, Indiana, just a little bit north of Santa Claus, and by the early 1900s he had moved to Louisville. His family did own some property here, however, on the Buckner tract in the south end of the county, site of Buckner's Furnace and the surrounding area. In fall 1902, Mr. Rothert made his very first trip to Muhlenberg County to check on that land. He made several subsequent visits as well, and filled part of his time here with listening to the stories and oral histories of Muhlenberg County's residents. In 1905, His friend Alvin Taylor suggested that he begin working in earnest to collect and preserve the history of Buckner's Furnace and the land surrounding it. The 1906 Greenville Record publication of The Story of the Stack was the culmination of that work. Mr. Rothert continued to delve into the history of Muhlenberg County, and in 1910 he decided to publish all his findings and research in book form. This history was the result of the work he had already done prior to that point and the subsequent work he did specifically for the publication of this book, The History of Muhlenberg County. Mr. Rothert did eventually become a Muhlenberg County resident for at least part of the year, splitting his time between here and Louisville for several years, and then, after retirement from the Filson Club, in Muhlenberg County exclusively. He developed and repaired historic structures on his family property to create what he called his forest retreat south of Greenville. He even published pamphlets about his home in the 1930s and 40s, as it was somewhat of a showpiece. The log house on the property was built in the 1880s from pieces salvaged from the original Buckner house dating back to 1838. Mr. Rothert had also cultivated a large, very diverse garden around the house. Although he only referred to himself as a gardening hobbyist, Mr. Rothert's garden included about 1,000 shrubs and trees of 500 different varieties in 1942, when he published a list of those available in his garden, as well as about 150 varieties of other plants. The last we knew, Forest Retreat is still standing on the former Buckner property near the confluence of Pond Creek and Salt Lick Creek. The house is privately owned. Mr. Rothert died in 1956 in Greenville and was buried in his hometown of Huntingburg, but he made a lasting impression on those of us remaining in Muhlenberg County and on other historians in general. He maintained close friendships with many Muhlenberg Countians until the end of his lifetime, and their respect for his talent, knowledge, and friendship was immense. He also served as a mentor to future historians, including his friend here in Muhlenberg County, Gail Carver, and former Kentucky State Historian Thomas D. Clark, namesake of the headquarters of the Kentucky Historical Society. Rotherts History of Muhlenberg County holds a place of pride in our collection at Thistle Cottage, and we would be sorely hampered if we did not have that volume for our research. We actually maintain several backup copies of the book, sheltered in different locations, just to make sure that we always have access to the book and its valuable information, even if something were to happen to the copy currently in use. Having said that, Mr. Rothert's History of Muhlenberg County is available at Thistle Cottage for researchers to browse when we are open. Our building is not yet open to the public, although we hope that will happen soon, but we are available for research requests by phone or email. Just contact us through our website or give us a call at 270-338-4760, and we'll check our archives to see what information we can find on your behalf. The History of Muhlenberg County is also in the collections of our traditional library branches and can be accessed there in person if you wish to see it for yourself. Thank you for joining me again this morning for this look at an incredibly important piece of our collection at Thistle Cottage. Have a great week, everyone.